What's happening on the global stage, the subtle maneuvers of China, the hesitations of the West, the panic in markets, the fear in boardrooms, is just a grand reflection of something far deeper and more personal. The real paralysis people are facing today isn't due to politics, technology, or economic warfare. It's coming from inside. You see, the most dangerous move isn't the one China might make next. It's the silent surrender happening inside millions of minds every single day. And unless we wake up to that, no nation, no leader, and no strategy will save us. The human mind is powerful beyond measure, but most people walk around like it's their enemy. We're conditioned from birth to react, to wait, to fear, and to doubt ourselves when uncertainty shows up. So when we hear of a superpower like China making calculated, silent moves, we project our inner fear onto them. We say, what if they dominate? What if we fall behind? What if we're too late? But pause and ask yourself, what are you really afraid of? Are you afraid of China? Or are you afraid that you've been asleep while someone else was awake? When you look at a society that's losing its creative edge, its urgency, and its confidence, you're looking at people who have forgotten how to think for themselves. The paralysis isn't because of competition, it's because of complacency, and complacency is born when you believe that comfort equals safety. But let me ask you, how safe do you feel when you know deep down you haven't become who you're meant to be? That voice in your head, the one whispering that you're meant for more, doesn't care about external politics. It cares about your potential, and when you ignore it, life gets heavy. People watch headlines, they follow news cycles, and they worry about the world turning upside down. But they haven't even explored the corners of their own consciousness. They're more aware of stock prices than their own limiting beliefs, more concerned about international threats than the personal threat of a wasted life. We think danger is out there, but the truth, the most dangerous battlefield is in here. Your mind, your habits, your decisions. Every powerful move in the world is silent. Whether it's a nation planning its next economic move, or a person deciding to change their thinking forever. The West isn't losing because China is winning. It's losing because individuals have stopped believing in their personal authority. The moment you give up control of your inner world, the outer world will shape you by force. That's what we're seeing. People being shaped, influenced, and paralyzed by forces they were supposed to rise above. Let's be honest, most people don't even know what they believe in anymore. They follow trends. They chase approval. They settle for routine. And when something disrupts that routine, they panic. That's not power. That's slavery with nicer clothes. If you want to understand how to never be paralyzed by the next silent move, by China or anyone else, you need to reclaim authority over your own mind. You need to stop outsourcing your emotions to politicians, systems, and social media. The silent move you really need to make isn't geopolitical, it's spiritual, it's psychological, it's invisible to the world, but transformative to your future. It's the decision to say, no more fear, no more doubt, no more waiting. That's the move that changes your energy. That's the move that rewires your life. You don't need permission. You don't need applause. You need one moment of clarity where you realize that everything happening out there is just noise compared to what's possible inside of you. Because here's what they won't tell you. Power isn't loud. Power isn't flashy. Power is silent, calm, and unwavering. And that kind of power only comes when you stop reacting and start creating. When you stop waiting for life to give you permission and decide that your future is your responsibility, that's when the shift begins. You weren't designed to be afraid. You weren't born to live small. You weren't put on this earth to shrink every time someone else moves forward. If the West is paralyzed, it's not because of someone else's strength. It's because of forgotten identity. and you can't fix the world until you fix the way you see yourself. When you walk with internal clarity, external threats become background noise. You stop watching what others are doing because you're too focused on what you're becoming. The media will keep telling you where to look, what to fear, and who to blame. But the truth is, most people are afraid of themselves. They're afraid of their potential, their discipline, their commitment, and their greatness. Because once you awaken to those things, there are no more excuses. There's no one left to blame, and that's when the real work begins. That's when you stop being a watcher of life and become the designer of it. Most people hear the word no and take it as a rejection of their worth, their ideas, or their dreams. They shrink, they retreat, they carry it like a scar, but the truth is, no is not rejection, it's redirection. It's one of the most misunderstood, misused, and misinterpreted words in the human experience. The difference between a person who breaks through and one who breaks down lies in how they respond to it. When someone tells you no, they're not defining your value. They're revealing theirs. They're showing you their perspective, their limitation, their current state of understanding. But that has nothing to do with who you are or what you're capable of. Every world changer, every creator, every visionary has been told no more times than they could count. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly, by family, by friends, by institutions, by the system. And still, they moved forward, not because they had something special others didn't, not because they were fearless, but because they learned that no is not the end. It's energy, it's momentum, and when understood properly, it becomes the fuel for your evolution. You see, life is constantly testing your seriousness. It wants to know if you truly want what you say you do, and one of its tests is sending you rejection, not to stop you, but to see if you'll rise. The average mind hears no, and immediately begins to lower its ambition. It starts to question its path. It looks for easier alternatives, quicker routes, and safer outcomes. But the extraordinary mind hears no, and leans in. It says, "Thank you for the resistance. Now I know I'm on to something real." That's the mindset of champions. They don't run from no. They absorb it, learn from it, and use it to sharpen their direction. But this takes mental discipline and, more importantly, emotional intelligence, because no can trigger pain. It reminds you of past wounds, times you were overlooked, ignored, or doubted. And unless you've done the inner work, you'll internalize that pain and start to wear it as part of your identity. But what you must realize is that no is an external occurrence. It only becomes an internal truth if you accept it as one. You have the power to say, "I see your no, and I raise you my vision." Think about it. Every breakthrough in business, in technology, in art, in science, was born in a space filled with rejection. The people who changed the game didn't wait for everyone to understand them. They didn't beg for agreement or chase applause. They understood that the world often says no to what it doesn't yet recognize, and sometimes you must be willing to walk through 100 no's before you hear the one yes that changes everything. But even then, let's go deeper. Why are you chasing the yes? Why do you need it? Because if your self-worth is tied to someone else's validation, you're forever at their mercy. You'll be on a constant emotional roller coaster, rising with praise and crashing with rejection. That's not freedom. That's imprisonment with nice lighting. The only yes that truly matters is the one you give yourself. The one where you affirm your power, your decision, and your direction, regardless of how many people say otherwise. You've got to train yourself to reinterpret rejection. Instead of hearing no as "you're not good enough," hear it as "not yet, not this path, not this way." That opens the door to creativity. It allows you to pivot without self-hate, to adjust your strategy without abandoning your purpose. No, doesn't mean your dream is wrong. It just means that the way you're currently approaching it might need refinement, and that's a gift, not a curse. Look around at those who are stuck, those who are bitter, angry, or numb. What you'll often find is that they stopped moving forward because someone told them no, and they believed it. They let a single moment of resistance become a permanent wall. But nothing in life is fixed. Doors close so that better ones can open, but only for the ones who keep walking. You don't fail when you hear no. You fail when you sit down and start building your home in that rejection. The key is to keep going, to outgrow the no, by becoming someone too powerful to be denied. The silent energy behind every no you receive is asking you one thing: will you surrender your greatness here, or will you move forward like it was never up for debate? Because the moment you stop seeking permission is the moment you start to access real power. That's when life begins to organize itself around your decision. Not because the world suddenly became easier, but because you became unshakable. And that's what changes everything. Not luck, not connections, not timing. Just the ability to say, I don't care how many people say no. My path is mine, and I will not stop until I see it through. Yes is a word that feels warm, validating, and safe. It feels like open doors, approval, opportunity, and comfort. But here's the paradox: not every yes leads you to your purpose. In fact, many yeses are silent traps that pull people away from their potential. People chase the affirmation of others so desperately that they say yes to anything that looks like success, even if it's empty, even if it doesn't align, even if it's not theirs to begin with. Most people don't realize that a yes spoken without clarity is more dangerous than 1,000 rejections. It becomes the silent agreement to live someone else's life. In a world that glorifies approval, very few people stop to question what they're actually agreeing to. When society offers them a job title, a lifestyle, or a relationship that looks good on paper, they say yes instantly, not because it fulfills them, but because it validates them. But here's the truth: validation is not the same as alignment. Just because someone says yes to you doesn't mean it's the right door. And just because you're offered something doesn't mean it belongs to your path. Many of the most lost people in this world are the ones who said yes too quickly, too often, and too unconsciously. Yes can become a drug. The more people hear it, the more they crave it, and suddenly their entire self-worth is measured by how often they're chosen, accepted, or praised. They forget who they were before the applause. They lose the ability to say no, even when something doesn't feel right. And that's when the real paralysis begins, not from rejection, but from false acceptance. They find themselves stuck in careers they don't love, in lives that look shiny but feel hollow, all because they kept saying yes, without first asking, is this what I truly want? You must learn to distinguish between a surface-level yes and a soul-level yes. The surface-level yes is based on ego, on being liked, being right, being admired. The soul-level yes is rooted in intuition. It often doesn't look glamorous. It might not come with applause, but it feels like truth. It feels like freedom. The world doesn't teach this. The world teaches obedience. It teaches reward-based behavior. It trains you to respond to every yes like a dog chasing a treat. But you are not here to be obedient to other people's plans. You are here to align with your own purpose. Clarity is your compass, and without it, you will chase anything that looks like progress, even when it's a distraction in disguise. Most people don't know what they truly value, so they can't tell the difference between an opportunity and a temptation. They'll say yes to money when what they really want is meaning. They'll say yes to attention when what they crave is real connection. They'll say yes to recognition when their soul is begging for rest. Without clarity, yes becomes a curse. It chains you to a version of yourself that was never meant to last. And here's the kicker: the more successful you become externally, the harder it is to say no. People assume that with more options comes more freedom, but in reality, freedom only exists when you know what to decline. Every yes you speak is a contract. It ties up your energy, your time, your focus. Say yes to the wrong thing enough times, and soon you'll have no room left for the right thing to enter. That's why discipline isn't just about saying no to distractions. It's about saying no to good things that aren't great for you. So many people find themselves burnt out, resentful, and unfulfilled, not because they failed, but because they succeeded at the wrong thing. They built ladders, climbed them fast, and only realized at the top that the ladder was leaning on the wrong wall. That's what happens when you chase every yes without checking in with your inner truth. That's what happens when you trust outside voices more than your own. The problem isn't that people are being rejected. It's that they're being accepted into things that don't honor their calling. You need to reclaim the power of intentional agreement, to pause before you say yes, to ask yourself, does this align with who I'm becoming? Does this honor my time, my energy, my spirit? Is this a yes from fear or a yes from truth? Because when your yes is rooted in fear of missing out, fear of not being enough, fear of being left behind, it will always lead you into confusion. But when it's rooted in truth, it will open doors no one else can close. In a world obsessed with speed, saying yes feels like progress. But real growth doesn't come from how many steps you take. It comes from the direction in which you're moving. And if you're saying yes to everything, you're probably walking in circles. Clarity simplifies life. It gives you the courage to say, that's not for me, even when it looks good. It gives you the confidence to wait, to choose, to move with purpose rather than panic. You are not here to be everything to everyone. You are not here to collect yeses like trophies. You are here to build something sacred with your life. And that only happens when you become selective, intentional, aligned, because one powerful, well-laced yes can change your life, but only if it comes from a place of inner truth. Negative feelings are not your enemy. They are signals, not verdicts. They don't arrive to destroy you. They arrive to reveal you. But the problem is, most people were never taught how to interpret them. Instead, they were trained to suppress, avoid, escape, or numb anything that felt uncomfortable. Anger, doubt, guilt, fear, shame. These emotions become locked inside, unexamined, and misunderstood. Over time, they start to define how people think, speak, and behave. And because they go unchallenged, these emotions don't just sit silently. They shape identities. People don't just feel doubt. They become doubtful. They don't just feel fear. They become afraid of their own potential. But what if negative feelings were never meant to be destroyed? What if the goal was never to eliminate them, but to understand them so deeply that they no longer control you? That shift alone can change your life. The truth is, negative feelings don't come from life itself. They come from the way we interpret life. Two people can face the same situation. One will see a challenge, the other will feel defeated. The difference isn't in the circumstance. It's in the focus, in the filter, in the story they tell themselves. Your mind is a projector, not just a receiver. Whatever image you hold inside, whatever story you repeat, you will begin to see evidence of it in the world. If you constantly say, I'm not enough, life will deliver experiences that reinforce that belief, not because it's true, but because you've trained your mind to find only what matches your internal narrative. Negative feelings are often just the result of repeated focus on what's missing, what's broken, or what didn't work. And the more you stare at the wound, the more painful it becomes. But here's what most people don't realize. Focus is a choice. You can shift your energy by shifting your attention. If you wake up thinking about what's wrong, you carry that energy into your day. You walk differently, speak differently, respond differently, and then you wonder why negativity keeps finding you. It's not finding you. You're attracting it by vibrating on its frequency. Every thought you think is a signal. Every feeling you feel is a vibration. And negative feelings aren't random. They are aligned with your current frequency. Change the signal and the frequency shifts. Shift the frequency and the emotion dissolves. Most people fight their emotions like they're in a war with themselves. They try to be positive without ever addressing the root of the negativity. They cover pain with fake smiles. They hide insecurity behind achievement. They mask sadness with distraction. But emotions don't disappear just because you ignore them. They wait, and over time, they leak into your health, your relationships, your focus, your ambition. You must face them, not with shame, but with awareness. Here's the secret. Emotions are feedback, not facts. They are indicators of what you're thinking, what you're believing, and what you're allowing to occupy your mind. When you feel fear, it's often because you're imagining failure more than you're imagining success. When you feel guilt, it may be because you're holding onto a version of yourself that you've already outgrown. When you feel doubt, it could be because you're comparing your journey to someone else's highlight reel. In every case, the feeling comes from focus, and the focus can be changed. You can't heal what you won't acknowledge. So stop pretending you're fine when you're not. Stop trying to skip the inner work because it's uncomfortable. Growth doesn't come from avoiding darkness. It comes from walking through it with light. Sit with the feeling. Ask it questions. What are you here to teach me? Where am I misaligned? What belief is feeding this emotion? When you ask, you begin to take back control. You begin to direct your mind instead of being directed by it. Understand this. You are not your thoughts, and you are not your feelings. You are the observer. You are the awareness behind all of it. And once you understand that, emotions lose their grip on you. They become temporary guests, not permanent residents. You let them visit, but you don't let them move in. This is power, emotional power, the ability to feel fully without being ruled, the ability to acknowledge pain without being consumed by it. The real danger isn't in feeling negative emotions. It's in staying stuck in them without questioning why. It's in assuming that because you feel unworthy, you must be unworthy. But feeling is not fact. Feeling is a lens, and just like any lens, it can be cleaned, adjusted, and replaced. Start to ask yourself, what story am I telling myself that's creating this emotion? Because if you can change the story, you can change the state. And if you can change the state, you can change the outcome. There are no bad emotions, only messages that haven't been read. When you finally stop running and start listening, you'll realize that every negative feeling you've ever had was just a misunderstood call for alignment. Not punishment, not weakness. Just a message that said, you're out of sync with who you really are. And that message, when honored, becomes your greatest ally. Because nothing is more powerful than someone who has learned how to feel deeply, process wisely, and choose their response with intention. Destiny isn't written in the stars, carved in stone, or handed down from some authority above. It's built moment by moment by the choices you make in silence when no one is watching. People spend their lives searching for purpose like it's a hidden treasure buried somewhere outside themselves. They read books, chase advice, attend seminars, hoping someone will hand them a blueprint with their name on it. But the truth is, destiny doesn't come with a map. It comes with awareness, with responsibility, with the daily decision to show up fully, even when no one applauds you, even when you're filled with uncertainty, even when the progress is invisible. Most people talk about dreams, but few ever touch them. Not because they're not capable, but because they've bought into the myth that destiny is something you wait for. That it'll knock on your door one day when you're ready, when things are better, when the timing is perfect. But here's the reality: waiting doesn't prepare you, action does. You don't grow by hoping, you grow by deciding. Every excuse you make delays your transformation. Every time you say, "not yet," you reinforce a version of yourself that keeps settling, surviving, and shrinking. Destiny begins the moment you stop negotiating with your excuses. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being committed to asking the right questions. What do I want? Who am I becoming? What am I tolerating? Most people don't build their destiny because they've never taken the time to define it. They live by default, not by design. They let culture, trends, fear, and other people's opinions shape their direction. And then they wonder why life feels off, why they wake up tired even after sleeping, why their days blur into one another, why the fire they once had is now a flicker. That's what happens when you live misaligned. When you're busy doing everything but the one thing you were actually born to do, and deep down you know it. That uneasiness you feel, it's not depression. It's your potential screaming for attention. It's your inner truth knocking on the door, asking, when will you stop running from what you already know? Because you do know, maybe not the whole picture, maybe not the end game, but you know enough to start. You know enough to begin shaping a life that feels honest. And that's where destiny is born. Not in clarity, but in courage. You can't fake alignment. You can't cheat inner peace. You can achieve everything the world says matters and still feel completely empty inside if you built it on the wrong foundation. Destiny doesn't come to those who perform well in public. It comes to those who practice integrity in private, who tell themselves the truth, who listen when their soul says, "This isn't it." You can lie to the world, but you can't lie to yourself, and when you do, life becomes heavy. You start to break down, not because you're weak, but because you've ignored your own design for too long. The most powerful people aren't those who wait for destiny. They build it by doing the hard, unglamorous, unseen work of choosing growth over comfort. Every single day, they put themselves in the position to become who they are meant to be. They choose discipline over distraction. They choose intention over impulse. They choose to take responsibility for their results, even when the world gives them every reason to blame someone else. That's what separates them. Not talent, not luck. Just the radical decision to own everything. You've got to understand, life doesn't care about your potential. It responds to your patterns. And if your daily patterns don't reflect your vision, your destiny will remain just that, a vision. Hope without action is hallucination. Intention without movement is self-deception. You can speak affirmations all day, but if you don't back them up with aligned behavior, nothing changes. It's the repetition of aligned choices, not the occasional inspiration, that creates a life worth living. Most people think building destiny is about doing big things, but often it's the small decisions, the ones that seem insignificant, that shape everything. The choice to wake up early when you don't feel like it. The decision to speak your truth instead of staying silent. The moment you invest in yourself instead of numbing with distraction. Destiny is built in the quiet hours, in the private victories, in the times you keep going even though nothing around you has changed yet. This is why you must stop giving your power away, not to circumstances, not to timing, not to other people's opinions. Your future isn't waiting to be found, it's waiting to be claimed through intention. Through alignment, through relentless self-leadership. No government, no system, no economy has the authority to determine what you can become. Only you do. That's what true freedom is. Not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of choice. The ability to decide how you respond, how you grow, how you show up, even in chaos, even in silence, especially in silence, because that's when destiny listens the most.